Good morning. It's Lauren and Mariah. We're here to talk about Much Ado About Nothing.
Today we're going to compare the two versions of Much Ado About Nothing and at the end tell you which version we like the best.
So we're going to start with the setting. So in the first, and for the purpose of making it easy to understand which movie we're talking about, we're going to label the first movie we saw as A and the second movie as B. So in movie A, the movie was obviously set in Shakespearean times. It was in Italy, and not only was the setting of the movie in Italy and in Shakespearean times, it was also filmed in different locations throughout the movie, as we're in
version B, it was only set in LA in a house, and the changing didn't really vary. Like, it stayed the same for the entirety of the movie.
After watching the first play, when we started watching the second play, the first obvious difference we noticed was the beginning. In the beginning of movie A, it starts with Beatrice reading a sonnet.
And the sonnet makes you have a viewpoint that men are negative and that all women during that period view them this way.
Right. And while she's reading the sonnet, she's in a beautiful garden with a crowd listening to her, and the crowd is men and women, and it looks like they're almost tailgating, like they're just having a good time.
And also it's viewed in a humorous way. Like, after she's done reading the sonnet, everyone starts laughing at what she's saying.
And the beginning of movie B starts with Beatrice and Benedict in bed. I think that this is obviously a lot different than movie A, but it also provides the audience with background that they did have a past relationship.
And in the beginning of version A, you don't know like who she's really talking about or who it's towards, but in version B, you do know that it's towards Benedict.
So now that we're talking about Beatrice and Benedict, we're going to go ahead and dive into the differences from movie A and B. So in movie A, in both movies, the same event happens, which is they each find out through other people that they like each other, but the difference is how they find out and their reactions. In movie A, Beatrice finds out from Ursula and Hero talking in the garden.
In movie B, Beatrice finds out from Margaret and Hero talking in the kitchen while Beatrice is on her way to do laundry downstairs, and she trips when she overhears that they say Benedict loves her.
Yeah. And not only is it different how they find out and where they are when they find out in each movie, but also their reactions. In movie A, Beatrice seems really happy and just like very overjoyed and almost like runs to go like do something. Like she's in urgent like want of seeing him or doing something to him.
And in version B, it's really harder to tell how Beatrice feels about Benedict. She seems more confused and overwhelmed with like love.
Another difference is once they kind of know that they like each other, when Benedict is trying to impress Beatrice, there's a difference between A and B. In movie A, he's trying to woo her with his words and really just try to romanticize himself in that way.
And in version B, he doesn't really use his words. Instead, he wants to show off his strength by like working out in front of her and showing off like how strong he is rather than being romantic.
Now moving on to Don John. So in movie A, Don John arrives, and he arrives in an actually good mood. At first, he's smiling, and maybe it is a fake smile, and then he kind of shows his real mood, that he's in a bad mood because he obviously just lost a battle against his brother, and his posse arrives with him, and you can obviously tell who his posse is because they're in all black. And in version B,
it's way more obvious to tell who Don John is because he comes in zip tied, and you can tell that he's the villain of the play. Also, you can tell who his posse is because they're also in zip ties. Okay, in version A, Don Pedro is the prince, obviously, and you can tell he's very loving, charming, and nice, and his goal is he wants everyone to get married. And also another key point is when he tells Beatrice that we should date, but you can tell he's jokingly saying it.
And in version B, we know that he's the nice guy because of version A, because it made it so clear in version A, but in version B, it was just harder to tell. He was more serious in version B. And not only that, but when he is trying to flirt with Beatrice or trying to get her, he's serious. It's not in a joking manner. Maybe it's because he'd been drinking, but when she rejects him, he does get upset and he doesn't laugh it off like he did in the movie A. Okay, so for these last three characters, we decided that there wasn't many actions that were different, especially with Claudio and Hero. We did notice major differences with Leonardo.
So one of the major differences with Leonardo in version A is that when Hero is confronted at the wedding about Claudio seeing her sleep with Borachio, Leonardo is very upset by this accusation that her reputation could be ruined, so Leonardo slaps her.
Yeah, and in the
version B, it's not more apparent that Leonardo...
Okay.
In version B, you can tell that Leonardo is still upset about the accusations made toward Hero, but he doesn't slap her, or it's not as obvious.
Yeah. And another thing that we were going to say about Hero and Claudio is that although their actions were similar in movie A and B, their emotions were drastically different. We felt that Claudio was less upset when Hero died in movie B than he was in movie A. We felt that Hero felt less ashamed in movie B than in movie A. And that's...
Yeah, and you can tell in version A, Hero is very dramatic and is bawling and hysterically when she finds out her reputation is ruined.
Yeah, she goes a little bit cray-cray.
In version A, in the end, it's a scene where everyone's dancing and it's joyful. And also, a key point to remember is that what Beatrice said in the beginning, the sonnet, it is saying at the... Wait, is it sung?
It's sung at the end, yeah.
It's sung at the end. And that's a key point because now it's in a different tone and it's like happy now. In the beginning, it was more like humorous, but yeah.
And also in the end, but the differences between version A and B are that the singing and the dancing in the movie A happens in a big garden with lots of people. There are lots of people who attend this wedding. And in version B, the dancing happens in a house with the Bluetooth speaker with less people. So you obviously get a more joyous vibe off of version A.
Yeah, and also in version B, it's just such a different plot and setting that it's just so modern that it's something that looks like you're just going to a normal party.
What I thought was interesting about version A is that it started how it ended. And I think it would have been interesting if version B would have started how it ended. Version A started with the sonnet, ended with the sonnet. And if version B would have started with Beatrice and Benedict in bed, it should have ended with them like walking off happily together. Our general analysis of both movies is that we hated version B.
It was just too modern and it didn't really like capture what Shakespeare is about. Like in version A, it really captured what he would have wanted in a movie.
Mm-hmm. And I felt like it threw the audience off, especially for me, seeing a modern house with modern clothes and then speaking in Shakespeare. It was just weird.
Yeah, it just didn't feel normal, while in version A it did.
And also in version A, it was more passionate. The love between Hero and Claudio was more real. The love affair between Benedict and Beatrice was more interesting.
And while in version B, it just all seemed way too casual. Like nothing really stood out to me about it.
And that's about it. Thank you. Tune in again next week.